Hello, me again. So, I've decided to do a review on a webcomic. I was a bit iffy at first because, chances are not too many people have heard about it. But it's been such a good read so far that I decided to do a review on it. Usually you review something when you're all done reading it, it's over, but it's a webcomic, i.e. it could go on for years, it might never be finished. I hope it is, but it could trail on for years and it might never be finished. So now is a good time to review it as any. And it's such a good read so far. I felt it deserved a review and deserved a comment. So the comic book, the online comic book that I've been reading is called Shades of A. Written by, I'm mispronouncing this because I've never read the style name before. I'm a bad, horrible person. Tab Kimpton. So what's it about? Well, Shades of A, it started out as a parody of the book 50 Shades of Grey, which I've never read. But apparently the writer of this hated that book because it horribly misrepresented kink and BDSM, and they were like, you're way off, that's not how you do it, and they got all ticked off. So they decided to do a parody of it to kind of strike back. So they picked a very unknown, untalked about sexuality themselves, in this case asexuality, and they basically did 50 Shades of Grey over again, but with an asexual character. But they did a ton of research and told a proper story about that sexual orientation and made it seem like they really knew what they were talking about. Unlike with 50 Shades of Grey, where apparently Rare felt that writer didn't know what they were talking about. They were just talking out of their butt. This writer decided to take on a subject and do a lot of research and know what they were talking about. In essence, get that unknown orientation right and proper. So it started out as a parody of 50 Shades of Grey, but very quickly it became this very serious story, and I don't think it has any relation to that book anymore. So it's become its own separate thing, and that's awesome. So what's the plot of Shades of A? The plot is, I'm going to mispronounce this name too because I'm a horrible person. Anray is asexual. He's not sexually attracted to anybody. That being said, he's very sex positive. He has a lot of friends who are open about their sexual orientations, and he's a very outgoing guy. So him and a friend, because the friend needs a wingman, go to this bar which has a lot of fetish groups in it. BDSM, cross-dressing, you name it, it's there. And while Anwar is there, just trying to keep to himself and do his own thing, he bumps into Chris, who is an open cross-dresser, and they surprisingly hit it off, and they kind of like each other. And they decide, what the hey, we're going to try to date. Now, Anray is very open about the fact that he's asexual, and he doesn't find anyone sexually attractive, so they decide just to date in a fun, offbeat, not really serious way, and just, hang out and have fun. But a problem arises when, you see, Anray isn't really comfortable about the fact that he is asexual. He's never talked to any other aces. He's not comfortable with his own orientation. So things go kind of awry when Anray starts suggesting sexual things to Chris to try and fix himself. He figures if he just has sex, he'll end up liking it, he'll become sexual and be like everybody else. So yeah, he's trying to fix himself. The story is listed on the website as porn, but so far there's not one single sex scene. There's a little bit of nudity. I think the writer's kind of exaggerating a bit to let people know what they're in for. Think of it more like a show on HBO. That's really more what it is. There's some nudity, there's a lot of talk about sex, but so far, no actual sex scenes. Anyways, so the main thing about this is Anray is trying to make his relationship sexual because he feels him being asexual is not proper and he's broken. And that's the main ongoing plot line. First of all, I would like to state that I'm asexual, and asexual means you don't find anyone sexually attractive. But just because of that, that doesn't mean that in all cases where asexual might be having sex, that's always negative. That doesn't mean that. Asexual could have some kind of oddball fetish that they're really interested in trying out, and it results in them being sexual just to try out the fetish, or they could have a loving partner that they want to be sexual with just to, help out the relationship a little bit, or they could have really high sex drive and be really sexual curious. There are actually positive reasons for asexual to have sex. Lots of asexuals, of course, don't, because we're not sexually attracted to anybody. But anyways, I wanted to point out that just because this story is dealing with a negative reason for sexuality doesn't mean all aces trying to be sexual is bad. It's just pointing out a actual negative reason. Anyways, where was I going? Well, I'd like to say that stating that what happens in the story is something that actually does happen in real life. When you have people of orientation or a group that feel like society as a whole doesn't really accept them, said people will do stuff that goes against who they are to try and fit in. They will try to fix themselves. And you can see this in a lot of stuff. You can, like an anorexic person deciding not to eat. That's somebody trying to change themselves to be like the rest of society. A gay person dating the opposite sex as a beard. There's a transsexual ignoring their actual sexual identity. There's a lot of examples of people trying to change themselves to fit in with the rest of society. So even though this is dealing with a very specific topic, asexuality, it's actually a very broad theme that I think a lot of people could relate to. And it's talking about something that really does happen in current society, but barely any other stories or books or movies talk about this. But it's a real thing and it happens, so it should be talked about. So kudos to that. It takes guts to take on serious subject matter and actually talk about it in an open and honest way, and that's what this book does. Now, of course, the big question is, does gay sexuality right? Well, you see, the thing is, everybody's different. Not everybody in orientation are going to be exactly the same. So there was a few things in this, as asexual myself, that I could really relate to, and there was a few things I couldn't relate to. Like, so for example, Enray is a very sensual guy. He likes to hug, he likes to cuddle. I'm not a sensual guy. I'm not into that kind of stuff, so couldn't really relate to that. But on the other hand, there's the scene where Enray is meeting up with Chris, and they're not really in a relationship yet, and Enray can't really tell if they're on a date or not, and he doesn't know what's expected of him. I have totally been there. I've been out with people, and I don't know, is this supposed to be a date? What am I supposed to do? What's expected of me? So I've definitely been there. I've been there a lot. So there was parts that I could really relate to and parts that are different from me, but I still would like to say it takes guts to write a story like this. And it's a controversial theme. It's an asexual person trying to fix themselves because they think they're broken. And the reader is like, you're not broken, you're fine. So it's kind of heart-grabbing in a sense. And so and it hasn't gone to conclusion. Obviously, it's an ongoing story. I of course hope that the Enray character eventually accepts himself. But it's a really good read. The characters are well done. It's obviously very smart. It's obviously very original. And it's rather thought-provoking. And it's really nice to read it and read the comments, because most of the readers of this comic book have never heard of asexuality before, and they have no idea what it is. And almost all of them say, Enray, you don't like sex, that's okay, you're not broken, you're awesome. And all the readers are like supporting him. So it's really cool to see people being so understanding of something they've never heard of before. And so it's actually really uplifting to read the comments of this comic. And it's really a good comic. So I would suggest this comic to anyone because it's good. And don't let the little title of it might be porn scare you away, because it really isn't. At least I don't think so. And this is my cat. So I would suggest to read it because it's good. And I hope that it gets completed. I hope that actually gets self-published and sold. And if it did, I'd buy 2 copies. One for myself and one for my library, because I think it's an important story. And yeah, I think people who are in orientations that aren't supported are going to try and fix themselves. and do horrible things to themselves and feel unsupported. And I think we have to support these people and help them out as a society. And that's what this story is trying to say, and that's an important message. So I'd say read this message, say what you think of it, and yeah, check it out. Shades of A, written by Tab Kimpton in his Discord's comic line. It's a good read. Big thumbs up.